Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have another episode in our Spoiler Spotlight series in which I talk about, well, spoilers and tell you what my thoughts are on them. But before that, just a quick reminder to please click subscribe if you enjoy these videos. We're getting close to 1,000 subscribers and it means the world to me. Much appreciated. And today we're going to be talking about Calix, Guided by Fate. For one colorless, one green, and one white, it's a legendary enchantment creature, human druid with Constellation. Whenever Calix, Guided by Fate, or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And whenever Calix or an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may create a token that's a copy of a non-legendary enchantment you control. Do this only once each turn. So this is really powerful, and it's just another piece of redundancy for those Constellation decks, as if they needed any more. This one is actually quite good, and I like it quite a lot because it's quite aggressive. It's going to allow your creatures to get bigger and bigger every time you play an enchantment. That's really nice to have, and it's going to function really good in Sithis decks, for example, obviously, but also just in its own kind of decks. You want it in a deck where a lot of stuff is being enchanted. Now, that's not necessarily always going to be such a good strategy to go for, because auras are quite weak in Commander in general, and the potential for 2-for-1 is pretty rough. However, it doesn't necessarily need an enchanted creature to deal damage. It just needs Calix or an enchanted creature to deal damage, and something like Rancor makes it very, very easy to make your creatures enchanted. So it should be fairly easy to trigger this once on each of your turns, at which point it becomes really insane. So in the worst case scenario, you're copying one of the enchantments that are on the creatures. For example, you might be copying Rancor or Armadillo Cloak or something like that, but then it can get even better. If you copy something such as Hardened Scales or Doubling Season, this becomes really crazy because it says non-legendary enchantments you control, and pretty much all of those good utility enchantments are non-legendary. And of course, those two cards in particular work really well with this commander because he's putting +1/+1 counters on things. So doubling those counters effectively is going to make things get out of hand really quick. And then of course the copies trigger him when they come in, so that is really nuts. If you're copying something like Hardened Scales, it's immediately gonna see the new copy as it triggers the Constellation and put an extra counter on it. That can be really sweet. Doubling Season works particularly well with this because you're both creating those token copies and you're putting counters on stuff. And creating token copies of Doubling Season that then get doubled by Doubling Season seems absolutely insane. So there's a lot of potentials to do really, really crazy stuff with this card. I think it's going to be a bit glass cannon-y, so it's going to be pretty easy to disrupt, hopefully, because if it doesn't, it's going to get quite oppressive. But it just seems like quite an interesting design and quite a fun one, though very, very pushed and very powerful. And once again, as with the last batch of leaked cards, this seems like it's very, very tailor-made to a specific strategy. These kind of commanders that we've been seeing in the last few days are not open-ended. They want you to play them in exactly one situation or in exactly one deck. And while it is nice, I think, for some niche strategies to get support in this way, I think it becomes a bit boring when every single commander is just tailor-made for one strategy. Particularly when it's something like this, enchantments, which we've had a million cards that support it in green-white. So I do hope that WotC gets a little bit more creative with some other designs of these, because it does get a little bit repetitive after a while, and there's just only so many enchantment support cards that you can put in a deck. I mean, there's just so many these days that you're really going to have to pick and choose which ones fit best. Anyway, this is one that I might actually build myself because I think the potential for absolute shenanigans is definitely there, and I love me some shenanigans. So there you have it. Those have been my thoughts on this new spoiler. What do you think about this card? Please let me know in the comment section below. I read all comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel, and until next time, take care. Woo!